Hey everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show. My name is Tom Marks, host and associate editor here at PC Gamer. With me today is Mr. Evan Lottie, editor-in-chief. Evan, how you doing?
All right, things are great.
We've got a few stitches since we last saw you on
yeah,
the show.
so if you notice any questionable facial hair, it's because I'm trying to avoid my hockey injury. Got hit in the face with a stick.
This is real hockey.
Yeah.
This wasn't like you were fighting a keyboard in a hockey game.
Oh, there are no PC games, hockey PC games, except for like a hockey manager or whatever it's called, unfortunately.
Now we're just starting the show on a down note, man.
I know.
That's so sad.
Sports games and PC, our weird relationship with them. Anyway,
we're also joined by contributing editor Steven Mesner via the television screen here. Steven, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's a beautiful day out, and I'm so excited to sit inside and talk about video games.
Yeah.
And this is your first time on the show since you have kind of been brought more into the fold of PC gamers, so welcome, man.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. I snuck my way in here and just stole a name card, and now I'm contributing editor.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Steven's been writing some crazy, funny stuff for us on the site. Not just funny, that's probably the worst word for it, but just...
Some of it's funny.
Yeah, really interesting community stories. I think one of the best things, one of the most interesting things you've written so far is there's an MMO called Tibia, which is very popular in Brazil and has been around for a long time. And there's like a door that the developers put in it that could be only opened by someone who reached level 100, was it?
999.
Basically the same thing.
Finally, like someone grinded for like ever to reach that point, and they're the only player to hit that point. And then they got there, and everyone was really excited, and they refused to tell like what's on the other side of that door. So it's like this super weird, mysterious. Yeah.
So I check in like every couple of days just to see if he's ever spilled the beans. He still hasn't. So
that's crazy.
This poor community is just ravaged by this secret.
Yeah. So basically, we've got Steven focused on hunting down those weird, fun community stories that we love and benefit from so much on our platform.
That's right.
Well, we love having him on the site, and we love having him here today as well. We got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about World of Warcraft Legion, which Steven is actually reviewing for us and playing lots of right now. We'll be discussing Eve. I actually skipped over this one. Eve Online, not entirely going free to play, but kind of going free to play and
in November.
Or will be. Excuse me.
Yep.
Then we'll also be talking about our PC Gamer Top 100, which we published on the magazine earlier this month or late last month, but we published on the site last week.
Yep. Dragon Age 2 is the top game, so looking forward to talking more about that.
Like all our viewers leave. Everyone leaves immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're, of course, going to be looking forward towards PAX West, which is this weekend. Me and James, like we said last week, me and James will be there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to just kind of talk about some of the things we're going to be seeing, some of the things we're excited about, and then we'll be back next week to tell you about those things and if they were actually worth being excited about and that sort of stuff. And then, of course, we're going to be taking your questions from Twitch chat at the end of the show. Real quickly, I do want to say thank you to Thorosity for subscribing. Says finally catching it live instead of listening in the car. So a podcast listener brought into the fold of Twitch. So thank you. Lots of bringing into the fold today. I'm reusing that analogy. I apologize.
PC Gamer, we bring people out of their cars and into the Twitch.
We're going to put that on the front of the mag, I think.
It's a terrible... Make a good bumper sticker.
Yeah.
No.
Good bumper sticker.
And JBJ Blaze just resubscribed for 8 months. So there we go. All the subs coming back. But first, let's start with what we've been playing recently. I actually want to start this week because my list of things I've been playing recently is 3 times longer than it usually is when I'm on the show. Mm-hmm. One of the things I didn't play, and I actually really specifically wanted to call this out this week. Last week, and this is kind of a depressing fact, but for longtime listeners of the show, you'll know this is a triumph. Last week, we did not say the word Overwatch a single time for the first show since probably a couple weeks before Overwatch came out. And the truth is, I did not play any Overwatch this week, so I'm going to move right along and actually talk about other games.
All right.
But I thought that was worth ruining that streak by pointing out that we had broken that streak. So, whatever. Moving on.
It's the only way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I played a bunch of Duelists this week. The new expansion just came out yesterday, Denizens of Shimzar, which was really, really cool. I just couldn't find what I wanted to play basically this weekend. So I was playing Prison Architect, I was playing City Skylines, I was playing FTL. I played some Stone Hearth, which is this early access kind of 3D Dwarf Fortressy style game. I played Abduction and actually beat it, and my review of that is going to be coming out probably tomorrow.
Great.
There were just so many games, and I think what it was is I started to notice a trend of City Skylines, FTL, Stonehearth, and Prison Architect. As I was like, and I also am going to hopefully be playing RimWorld when I get back from PAX, is like I started craving like these automated Dwarf Fortress-y kind of games over the weekend.
Yeah, I think sometimes you want that. I call it like the feeling of passive accumulation, where you have an ant farm running and it's gathering stuff for you. And yeah, like certain problems crop up that you have to manage and you have to build buildings and whatnot and manage. But yeah, I mean, I put 60 hours into Stardew Valley somehow, so I know all about that.
Stardew Valley is a little more hands-on, though, than those
true.
games. But FTL, I want to specifically call out FTL. Holy crap, I forgot how good FTL is.
Are you playing with any mods?
No.
Because you can add in like basically name any sci-fi ship, and there's an FTL ship version.
But this was the first time I'd actually played it since they added the Advanced Edition stuff like a while ago. They did that, I think, at least a year ago. But FTL was a game I played religiously in college. Like, I would just play the hell out of that game, and I took a really, really long break from it because I was just moving on to other things. But I went back, and man, I forgot how much fun FTL is. That game is just so good.
Yeah, that game doesn't age. Like, that game hasn't aged poorly at all. Like, you go back to it and it's almost as good as the first time you play it, where you're just, it sucks you in. Like, it sucks me in. Every couple of months I'll go and play it and I'll sink 20 hours into FTL without even realizing that I'm spending that much time playing FTL.
Yeah. Panzer 2 just subscribed for a second month in a row, so thank you very much for that. But yeah, it was just so engrossing, and I was really proud that my first time back, I got all the way to the final form of the final boss before I got absolutely annihilated. But
if you're playing on normal, that's expected.
I was playing on easy.
It's still tough. Still tough. I mean, you kind of need to have certain weapons or a certain amount of crew.
Yeah, it was tricky. I think what my mistake was, I didn't go to a repair station in the final sector, and then by the time I really needed to, they had all been destroyed because it was the final form, and so I just was like, I went into the final form with half the health of my ship, and I was like, okay, well,
that's bad.
Yeah, I know.
Rookie move, man.
It was. I was rusty. All right, and plus there were things that like totally caught me off guard. Like the capital ship has like it has hacking and it has mind control in the advanced edition.
Yep.
And I just totally didn't expect those abilities at all, and so he mind controlled my captain, so my evasion went completely down, and my captain then destroyed my drone control, and the drone control went down, and like it snowballed quick. And that's what happens in that game, is like you feel like you're doing great until you've lost.
FTL makes the best anecdotes. I feel like I could sit down and have someone just recount their FTL stories to me for a whole afternoon, because even just saying that sounded like an incredible episode of Star Trek almost.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It was... I still love that strategy in FTL of invaders come on board and you just lock all of the doors and open the airlocks to them, and they slowly suffocate as they're like banging on the doors. It's like such a simple art representing that, but like you said, it's something you could see in a movie. Like if that moment was in a movie, it would be like a tense, terrifying moment, but it's just this little sprite art. Well, Evan, or actually, Steven, let's talk to you first. What have you been playing, man? What have besides Legion, because we're gonna get into that.
Right. Yeah. Besides Legion, well, mostly I've been playing a game that you might have heard of called World of Warcraft Legion. I'm kidding. Okay, so I've actually been
off to a bad start here.
Yeah, whoops. No, I'm similar to you, where because I'm playing Legion, I'm kind of looking for like smaller experiences on the side. So I've actually been sinking even more time back into Rocket League, which continues to be probably just one of the best games I've ever played. the fact that I can still sit down after 200 hours and lose a whole evening to it, where like I have to consciously like separate myself from the computer in order to go to bed at night because it's so late, and I feel like such a kid because I don't have control over my inhibitions because I just want to play more Rocket League. It's so good. I mean, the updates that they've made to it is really weird because now it has that CS:GO-esque loot system behind it, which I don't really focus on too much. I'm mostly just 100% still absorbed in the 1v1 dueling game and the artistry that exists behind being really good at being able to duel someone one-on-one. It just never gets old. That game doesn't get boring for me.
Do you feel like they have so many players that it's probably fine, but I was actually turned off by the fact that they fragmented it into multiple games and modes, kind of, with the basketball. Sure. And I like hockey, and they made a hockey game as well. I was sort of like, I want it to be one thing. That's kind of the spirit and purity of the experience to me.
Yeah.
How did you respond to those updates?
I think like when you're looking at the numbers, because it shows you how many people are in different playlists, right? You look at certain playlists and you're like, wow, like 1v1 dueling only has 700 people in it. And that seems like a really small pool of players. But so far, I haven't felt like I've been fragmented quite like the same way that you see it with maybe like Call of Duty expansions when the new map packs come out and suddenly, or Halo, or any of those types of first-person shooter games that end up getting like segmented because of maps and things. It doesn't quite have that same feeling to me. So, mostly at this point, all I'm playing is 1v1 duels, and there's always more people to play. So yeah, it doesn't really bother me that much.
I mean, the interesting thing about that, too, is that Rocket League, of course, is the sequel to the terribly named supersonic acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars. I believe I got that name right. But
I think so.
That game, the first game, was actually more like what Rocket League is now, right? It had these crazy modes and it had these weird things. And when Rocket League launched, it was sort of the bare bones experience of that. But, like you said, that bare bones experience was so pure and so good that it wasn't a bad thing that's all there was. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting to hear you say that as it gets kind of closer to what it originally was maybe envisioned as, it's like losing a little bit of that to you.
Yeah. Quake Champions is going to find itself in a similar boat. They're taking the most pure FPS ever created, that's about speed and twitch reflexes and whatnot, and bolting stuff onto it, welding stuff onto it. Is it going to survive that? It's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like kind of a catch-22, right? Because they exist in sort of a market now where the expectation is that there's going to continually be these types of, new things bolted onto it. And that's what a lot of people see as the sort of the value for multiplayer games, is that there's always going to be new things coming out every couple of months. And so, I don't know if Rocket League hadn't done this, it might have actually had like a much shorter lifespan with the community if it just kind of retained its pure essence and didn't try and do goofy, wild things.
What they should really do is take a cue from Overwatch and turn Rocket League into Overwatch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Overwatch turned Overwatch into Rocket League.
That's right.
With Lucio Ball, with its like World Games update or whatever it is.
I'm trying to picture how that would happen.
So
you know what? Are they not kind of doing that? Because the new thing that they were talking about is that there's the game mode where every car kind of has these special abilities.
Oh, there you go.
Trigger. That is totally just Overwatch now that you think about it, because a lot of them are like crowd control abilities. Some of them like stun cars and keep them frozen in place.
Is one of the cars a sexy spider? Is it?
There's one with like a grappling hook thing.
There you go.
Yeah.
You can do Roadhog hooks now.
What?
So I was trying to think though, because the way that Overwatch became Rocket League is that it added like goals, right? And it was a scoring game instead of a killing game. So could you have Rocket League where they're pushing a payload? And in that case, would the payload be a person instead of a car? Like how much are we flipping this here? I love the idea of 3 Rocket League cars escorting a very slow walking human, like from one end of a net to the other.
This is like becoming one of those Pixar Cars movies or something where everything is car people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we should move away from it. Evan, what have you been playing?
Yeah, thanks.
This week?
Good
Thanks
segue.
for getting us out of there. So, hey, Master of Orion came out last week. A reboot of Master of Orion, or sort of a remake, I guess. That classic 4X series, one of the kind of progenitors of that whole genre. 4X, if you're totally unfamiliar, if you haven't played Stellaris, which is like probably the biggest 4X game to come out this year, most people would say, yeah, Civ is a 4X game as well. But yeah, this was created by kind of a new division of wargaming. Of course, the folks who make World of Tanks, World of Warships, and I know like the CEO over there in Belarus or Russia. I'm not sure where they are based actually. He's a huge like lifelong fan of this game, and they bidded to get the rights for it and ended up making this. And yeah, after 20 or so hours, I think it's pretty good. I pretty much agree with all the sentiments in our review. It's a really personality-packed take on the genre. We're looking at some video footage here. If you're watching on Twitch, its leaders are very expressive. Like when you go to that diplomacy screen, you're getting like really animated characters that you're working with, which is definitely a shortcoming of something like Stellaris, which doesn't have that level of polish and detail in favor of like greater randomization and variety. It's a great introduction to the genre for anybody who's been curious but intimidated by Civ or Galactic Civilization is another example of a 4X game. But it definitely lacks depth in some key areas. I mean, 4X as a genre is, I think, one that prizes complexity and interesting systems. So, for example, it has an espionage system, which admittedly Stellaris did not launch with, but it's very shallow. Like it just feels like I'm picking between 10 things that I can do that are negative against my enemy, and they all kind of have the same effect, whether I'm blowing up one of the buildings on their planets or stealing some technology from them. It all kind of feels the same. And even when like you have this cool event, like you catch an enemy spy and you can choose to kill them or spare them, and it has like a diplomatic impact. But it's a 2 buttons and you don't really feel it. You know what I mean? So there's kind of some uneven aspects to it where like those character animations that we saw, you go to that race selection screen that you open the game with, and Michael Dorn is talking to you, Worf from Star Trek, and you're like, oh man, and like some of the leaders are voiced by like characters from Firefly and like other characters from Star Trek, and you're like, oh man, this feels like really high production and expensive and flashy. And there's like a custom little like 20-second intro movie for every race that kind of gives you some background on who you are, and you really feel a connection to them immediately, which is awesome. But yeah, just basic aspects of the game start to feel dull and repetitive, and like you colonize a bunch of planets and you manage their production and their research levels, and you get new technology. And if you played a bunch of these kind of games, it's sort of just par for the course. It's not, they didn't really embrace a lot of new ideas or experiment with stuff. They kind of went in some safe directions, but this game definitely has potential to grow still, and I hope they continue to focus on it. Stellaris has absolutely like laid out a really clear roadmap and done a great job. Those guys at Paradox of saying what's coming in the game, and they recently this week were talking about some cool changes to their Fallen Empires, which are a really interesting aspect of that game. You should check it out. But yeah, I would say play Master of Orion. It's $30 if you've always been curious about 4X and you're like, I like the idea of space Civ, but you've been intimidated for whatever reason. Like this is definitely your game to jump in on this.
I think it's really interesting how like it feels like the last few big 4X and even just maybe strategy games as a broader term have all sort of had this philosophy of launching with a really sort of basic like rule set almost, and then over time expanding into something that really then becomes sort of a must-play experience. I mean, Civilization games have been like that for a long time too, where people are like, oh, the base Civilization game's okay, but then expansion X was what really made it so much better. So that's just such an interesting, I don't know, weird trend.
I think it's just that like these 4X games, these strategy games, have so much to them that it seems impossible to me that any developer would be able to sufficiently play test it in a significant way or in the same scale that they can when the game actually launches, right? Like I'm not saying like, oh, these developers get a pass on playtesting or whatever, or anything like that. I'm just saying, like,
Sure.
I think that the Overwatch developers at one point were like, I know I said it again, but like I've heard. Well, I'll leave it anonymous. I've heard multiple developers of multiple games say that in the first day that their game comes out, they have more playtesting hours than in their entire beta test period for a lot of these bigger games, right? And I'm sure that that's significant with 4X games, is that you just kind of, if you get enough people playing it, the cracks will show quicker or more clearly.
Of course. Yeah, and do you want to design systems in a way that, on day 2, all that work you did to based on like a previous idea is completely, the rug is like pulled out from under you because you have 10,000 people in there who have said, actually, it should be this way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's jump along. I think that was a great conversation about games that we just started with. I'm really happy with that segment, guys.
Thanks.
So let's talk about two things in a row that Steven Mesner is very excited to talk about.
Yeah.
This is
the Steven Mesner show. This is my show now.
It is.
All right. Just mute your mics. The next 40 minutes are mine. Yeah. Sit back. If you got to go to the bathroom, do that.
So the first thing is EVE Online. And I'm going to let you explain exactly what happened in more detail. But basically, EVE Online is in November is going to open the game up to have a free-to-play aspect of it, which is a free-to-play account that's limited in a lot of ways. They previously had a free trial, but this is like a bigger version of that. And the people who are already subscribed or want more out of the game will still pay monthly like usual.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the gist of it. There's not too much more in depth. I mean, if you really want to get into it, they have a specific list of skills in their blog posts showing what skills. They do some interesting things. I think actually, looking over it, I would almost wonder if they're being almost too heavy-handed with what they're limiting new players. But maybe that's smart, because then they can they've said so already that they're going to be adjusting things as it goes forward, listening to feedback. So maybe they'll give people more freedom. But that's basically it. I mean, if you want a really good sort of analogy of how you want to think about it like World of Warcraft, where the first 20 levels of World of Warcraft are completely free. And you can just play those to your heart's content, basically, and there's some basic limitations, like you can't send mails or things like that, and it's basically that. EVE Online isn't dying. It's not doing the full free-to-play conversion that we saw like Elder Scrolls Online do or Star Wars The Old Republic. It's just them opening up to a wider audience, getting rid of that subscription fee barrier that turns a lot of people away at first.
So I mean, EVE is such an interesting game for a number of reasons, but one in particular for me is that CCP has been able to sustain the game with, I'm not going to say a small number of players. I think there were periods throughout the 20-teens even where it had reached like new records and stuff like that, and
for sure
was showing a lot of growth. But ultimately, compared to WoW, compared to other MMOs, like a passionate core of players, and they've avoided going free up until this point. Like, are you surprised that it kind of took them this long, or should they have done it earlier?
I was certainly surprised when I woke up this morning and we were in the chat and it was like, EVE Online's going, they're implementing a form of free to play. Like, it totally caught me by surprise. I think now that I've looked through it, I think it's honestly, I'm almost surprised that they didn't do it earlier. EVE Online has the biggest problem with EVE Online right now is that their new player retention is dismal. Like, awful. People play the game, they don't understand what's special about it, they can't get into it, and then they leave and they're frustrated. And the subscription fee just makes that much worse, because then people are spending money to be frustrated. So reading the comments from the EVE community, it was amazing. The EVE subreddit is usually a pretty negative place sometimes, and it was almost universally positive. People are excited about the idea. EVE Online thrives with new players and new blood, entering that game. And so if this is, if this works and it brings, a whole new audience to EVE Online, it's going to be really good for the game. And
when we talked about it, you said to me, you woke up, you saw that it was like a headline from someone that said EVE Online goes free to play, and you were like, oh no, the game is dead. and then you found out what it actually was, which is these free-to-play accounts, and you were like, oh, the game is going to be better than ever, which is hilarious. Which is hilarious to me that difference is like so huge in your eyes.
So polarizing. Right. So when I woke up and I saw just the headline, EVE went free to play, what I immediately envisioned was they were scrapping the subscription fee entirely. They were going to be introducing microtransactions, which already kind of exist in the game, but they would probably have to, the game wouldn't survive on the microtransactions that are there. They'd have to find new ways. And that would just be really bad for EVE if you started messing with sort of the core integrity of how the systems work in order to basically suck money out of people.
The game would go in chaos, right? Like the economy would just collapse if you removed ISK.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, what they have right now is they have, like, you can pay for your subscription using in-game money, which is what stops the game from being, overrun with gold sellers and helps a bunch of things. But then most of the microtransactions are all just cosmetic. So, you're basically just, you're not really impacting your game in any way by buying those. But, in my mind, I was suddenly like, oh my God, like they're going to start selling like skill pack boosts or something where you give them, $20 and you can earn skills much quicker or things like that. And I think those would have been indicative of EVE Online being in a much worse place because, if you talk to people in the EVE community, there's a ton of opinions about the direction of EVE and whether this is a game that's going to live for another 10 years or if it's slowly winding down and dying. It's been around for a really long time, so
Yeah, and without speculating too much, because we love EVE, and personally,
for sure,
I want it to exist forever. CCP. I hate speculating on financial stuff and business because it's not really what we do at PC Gamer. But the World of Darkness MMO got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Dust 514 was a huge, ambitious gamble that I think did not work out, you could say safely at this point. So yeah.
Valkyrie,
they're certainly getting some help from Oculus to build that and getting financing through them, but
Valkyrie's still included with a Rift, but it kind of was not received as positively as a full game as when we demoed it.
Right. Right. So ultimately, I mean, they're a company who's built on the back of a 13-year-old MMO that is wonderful, and I think one of the centerpieces, I would frankly say, of what makes the PC interesting. But how long can that go on? Hopefully forever.
Dang, yeah. That just got real romantic at the end there.
Hopefully forever. No, and I
never die.
I think with the free to play, will hopefully, looking at it, I don't think there's any reason to be negative about what they're doing because it's a very smart introduction of free to play. If it brings more people in and more people can experience what makes EVE special, that's a good thing because EVE is special and it deserves to be appreciated more for it.
So the last question I have for you, Stephen, before we jump along to WoW is, I am a person who has viewed EVE from afar, and I'm talking, this is my personal experience, but I imagine a lot of people listening right now sympathize this. Seen the articles that we write occasionally about EVE with these big crazy corporation fights, some of which you have written, and this weird political intrigue. Seen it as an obscenely difficult to get into game, and also not wanting to pay money for a monthly subscription fee, who's now interested in playing it but has no idea what to do. Like,
right.
What is your number one, like, just do this and go sort of tip?
Well, what I would suggest is play EVE, and immediately the first thing you want to do is you want to get punched in the face and blown up. Once you get like the sting of, once you get over the sting of loss, because that's usually what happens is people play the game, they lose a ship, and it's massively frustrating. Sometimes it financially ruins them in the game because they weren't smart about it. They get frustrated, they're overwhelmed, and then they just decide, like, why am I putting myself through this for no good reason? I could go play Rocket League and have way more fun. Go out, get messy and get dirty. And right now the community has so many alternatives that can help you do that. So there's all these new player friendly corporations. The biggest alliances in the game now have new player friendly corporations that are like feeders for the alliance, where you can sign up on day one. You can join a corporation. There's one called, or an alliance called Pandemic Horde. You can get in with these guys. You're going to be playing with people who are mostly brand new, just like you. And you can go and get involved in like the big battles you read about in EVE Online. You can go and be like a hero basically with a day one account. Like the idea that you need to play EVE for 5 years to be useful in the in-game economy is false. You can go and have fun on day one. It might be a little hard. That game's obtuse and hard to learn, but it's possible. So do that.
So the short and long of that is essentially just do it and don't be afraid to be terrible.
Yeah, like you need to have EVE is a difficult game because you can't approach it like other video games where you're expecting to be rewarded and patted on the back every 5 minutes as you play. It's a game that you need to be humble and you need to look at things as learning experiences. So if you lose something, instead of being frustrated, you need to be able to ask yourself, what did I do wrong and how can I do better? And people who kind of naturally lean towards that type of logic will typically find EVE Online a really rewarding game.
This is like a coming-of-age tale in a video game.
Yeah. Come here, son. Under my arm. Let me give you some life lessons about EVE Online.
Name your ship. Come fight me, bro. Get on the front lines.
Go and lose a ship.
Get
like
blown up.
really, that's the best thing you can do is blow up and do it spectacularly. Like really, just try something dumb. Go out to like a pirate, like a part of space that's owned by pirates, and just find someone and pick a fight with him. Like call him names and just immerse yourself in the EVE sort of mythos. And become an EVE player. Become that ruthless person.
I like to think that a good amount of people listen to this podcast, but I'm really worried about the reach right now if we just accidentally flood EVE with like a bunch of PC gamer assholes picking fights with people and like totally screwing everything up for the rest of the game.
But that's exactly what EVE loves. If 1,000 PC gamer assholes flooded into EVE today, EVE players would be salivating in order to destroy them. Like that's what makes that universe go round, is violence and conflict. So be violent, start conflict.
You heard it, people. Go start a PC gamer corporation and and kill some people.
Do it in our name.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, do it for us.
Well, let's jump to another MMO that's been in the news lately. World of Warcraft got its Legion expansion, Burning Legion, big green flaming demons attacking the world. And it's came out yesterday, and you've been really enjoying it, Stephen. I know you've been playing a lot. James also has returned to the dark side of World of Warcraft.
Yeah, you guys were live streaming it last night, if anybody caught that.
Yeah, we did. Stephen, you were streaming from our Twitch account. James was streaming from our Facebook page.
That's right.
We might do a few more of those going forward as well, because you'll be playing a lot of that game, I imagine.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, certainly if you're one of our people on Twitch, keep an eye out. If I'm playing, come and join me. It was a great time last night.
So, I guess my big question with an expansion, with every WoW expansion, it got James, but what is there in this expansion that would pull me back? The last time I played is vanilla. Like I played WoW at the very beginning of WoW, and then I've tried to get back into it a couple times, and it never really got its hooks in me very much. But you were telling me that this is like one of the best times to get in. They've made this expansion super accessible.
They really have. Yeah, so at this point, the way Legion works, sort of how they've tweaked every system, and it's kind of almost an issue of there's so many granular changes that all add up. So you can't really target in specific single things that make Legion great. But it really is. They've done a bunch of really smart moves. So I think one of the big ones is they now have level scaling across the zones. So where it used to be in old expansions, you would go to one zone and that was the zone where all the quests were like level 100. And then once you got to level 102, you'd move to a new zone. How it works now is all the zones just adapt to what your level is. So you can basically just approach Legion however you want, and you're always going to be doing something meaningful, and your character's always going to be progressing. And that's sort of the greater theme of Legion, is that across the board, it really feels like an expansion that I could log in for 2 hours every other night, and no matter what I'm doing, it's going to be beneficial and rewarding both long term and then also sort of in the short term as well. Like the rewards also now scale to your level, so you're typically always going to be receiving the kind of loot upgrades that you want, instead of being like, oh, like I can't use this is totally pointless to me, what a waste of 5 minutes doing this quest. Suddenly it's, oh no, this is now something I can use. And that's always, they kind of just hit that perfect rhythm where every couple of minutes you're just having something nice and rewarding happening. And I think the story's better than it's ever been. They've really made some good strides in making you care about the characters that are happening, and that's always a tough thing with MMOs. How do you take sort of such a big, vast world and distill the story into something that's digestible?
Well, it's also how do you make a hero when there are 100,000 other people around you doing the same thing?
So that's still going to be a problem, and you just almost have to ignore it if you're going to want to enjoy Legion. And I certainly get that there are people who just can't get past that. The fact that you are now the Azeroth's hero along with a million other Azeroth heroes. And it's even worse in Legion in some respects because there's new artifact weapons. So instead of getting new weapons as you level up and progress, you just have one weapon now, and that one weapon stays with you for the entirety of Legion. You're never going to not be using this weapon. But it has its own talent tree, and it has its own experience bar that it'll be leveling up alongside you. And there's some cosmetic options to change the weapon to sort of feel more personal. But especially right now, you go into a zone, and if you're a paladin, every paladin has the same sword on, and it's a weapon from the lore. So like all the warriors have like an Ashbringer weapon, which is supposedly like this rare and unique weapon, except for there's a million people walking around with it. So you're gonna there's still those little weird flaws, I guess you could say, that you're going to have to kind of ignore or make peace with. But I think the things that it gets right, I'm not really thinking about that from moment to moment, like, oh, that guy kind of looks like me.
I'm not sure if it was you telling me this, Stephen, or somebody else, but I was sort of interested to hear more about how Diablo is influencing or has influenced World of Warcraft, and whether that's a recent thing or something that this was actually happening in the previous expansions or updates.
That's all brand new. So yeah, Blizzard's, I think this is really smart of Blizzard to look at their other games, see what was successful for them, and then find creative ways to incorporate that into World of Warcraft. And so these dungeons aren't out yet, but on paper they sound really smart. But there's a new difficulty level of dungeons called Mythic Plus in Legion, and they're basically like the Greater Rift system from Diablo 3, where each time you play these Mythic Plus dungeons, they get harder, and they add these unique sort of randomized buffs to the enemies that you're going to have to deal with. And so you might go into a dungeon, and the enemies might spawn damage pools under your casters, and they also might explode when they die, and they might, go into a fit of rage when they get low on health. And suddenly that's really changing how you would approach the dungeon. And I think that's really smart, because typically dungeons and MMOs are pretty well crafted, but you're going to run it 1,000 times, and it's going to be the same thing 1,000 times. Now they found a way to make it sort of creatively varied enough that each time you go in, it should be, kind of a different experience. It'll require different tactics.
Great.
Yeah.
Blizzard's been doing that not just with WoW. All of their games lately have been
Overwatch.
Well, Overwatch, but also Heroes of the Storm.
Definitely.
Because Heroes of the Storm, a few months back, I can't remember exactly when now, got StarCraft 2's ranked system with the tiers going up to Grandmaster or whatever, like Gold, Silver, Diamond. I got that flip.
Right.
You know what I mean. And then now Heroes of the Storm is getting the upvote cards at the end of a match that Overwatch has. Overwatch is also getting a similar rank system. World of Warcraft is getting Diablo's procedural generation. They've been doing that way, way more lately.
Yeah, it's good. I think that kind of cross-pollination is helpful. It also kind of reinforces what Blizzard's ideas are in terms of design, and kind of gives you a sense of what to expect a little bit more across their games if you happen to play more than one Blizzard game.
They're also doing that with stuff like Medivh, right? Medivh was the center he was a big character in their movie, and then he was the center of the latest Hearthstone expansion, and then he's got something to do in Legion. He's got his tower is part of Legion.
Yeah, Karazhan. Yeah.
And then they added him to Heroes of the Storm, and I think it's interesting that, I was saying when I went to BlizzCon last year, we got these BlizzCon. Everyone who attended got one of those BlizzCon bags, right? And it had the 6 logos of all 6 IPs that Blizzard runs, which is, if I can do it, StarCraft, Warcraft, Overwatch, Diablo, Heroes of the Storm, and Hearthstone. And a year before that bag would have only had 3 logos on it. A year before that, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, and Overwatch would not have been on there. So it's crazy to see how quickly they've exploded and then how quickly they've started tying all those ribbons together, which is, I think it's really, really interesting. And I think it's already having positive effects on a lot of their games, like this procedural generation stuff in WoW. Seems like that sounds really, really cool for their end game.
Yeah, a few years ago we would have been, and we were surprised, like, oh, Blizzard's releasing 2 games this year.
Yeah.
You know? It's great.
I think it's the beginning of them starting a PlayStation Home experience. Where it's like you have one game and then it connects
from game to game.
Yeah. Why not, Blizzard? Go for the fences. Swing for the fences on that one.
Blizzard VR coming soon. If that's in their BlizzCon announcements this year, I'm gonna lose my mind.
That'll be very surprising.
That would be their next step towards taking over the world, I think, at that point. But thank you for catching us up on Legion.
Yeah.
I think it's exciting. There's an air of excitement around this expansion that I haven't felt around WoW in a while, I feel like. Is that just me, or? No,
that's true. I think what a big part of that is because Legion is such a make or break it moment for Warcraft, because Warlords of Draenor was kind of a huge disappointment in retrospect. And I mean, they shed a couple million subscribers almost immediately, the months after Warlords came out. So I think there's just a lot of excitement about whether or not Legion will be able to, make good and sort of re-earn the faith that Warcraft fans and subscribers and anyone kind of, remotely interested in the game has. And so far, I think it's doing a really good job of it. I think, if Blizzard can make good on their promises to update Legion and, roll out more interesting things in the coming months and make it an expansion that people want to continue playing, which wasn't the case with Draenor, it'll be probably one of the best expansions they've ever released.
Well, we'll see if they can follow through on those promises. That's a big It's a big if, right? Not saying that they can or can't do it, but it's a big thing.
For sure. And I mean, our review's coming up this week, but we'll be looking at Legion months down the road and reassessing and looking back on it and making sure that it's still something that they're kind of that first impression, that good first impression, is continuing to last.
Well, cool. Let's jump along to, instead of looking forward, looking back a little bit. Do you like that transition?
Mm-hmm. I guess so.
I'm full of segues today, man.
I guess I do. Lists. You love them. I love them. Giving things.
Who doesn't love a good list?
Assigning numbers to things. It's what we do ultimately. I mean, I guess there's some words sometimes attached to the things that we publish, but mainly it's the numbers that we publish here. And recently we published a longer set of numbers, specifically 100 numbers.
A lot of numbers.
Corresponding with
can't even count that high.
The top PC games right now. That's an important distinction, actually. Maybe we should start there.
Yeah. So this was a distinction that I think if we did not make, a lot of people would get mad, right? Is the distinction between these are our top 100 games ever of all time ever created, or these are the top one, what this list actually is, which is these are the top 100 games that you could pick up right now and would be the best games for you to be playing.
Yeah, because it's something we've talked a lot about over the years, and we've kind of iterated a little bit on this criteria, but I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing our competitors or our peers or anything like that. But yeah, a lot of these types of lists, whether they're of movies or television or whatever, it's like the best shows of all time. It feels very definitive, and you're like, oh man, I want to read that. I want to argue over it or whatever. But how do you really evaluate Tetris and Minecraft or Mario 3 and World of Warcraft? How do you because inevitably most of those lists, if they're all games ever, not just on PC, you're ending up with some top 10 that's Half-Life 2 and I don't know, Wizardry and Ultima and
it's Half-Life 2.
Early,
that's the answer.
Early DOS game. That's your top 10. That's usually what it looks like or something. And you're like, okay, but Zork was really important, or Diablo 1 was really important, but would I push most people toward Diablo 1 rather than Diablo 3? Like, why would I do that? So what we want to right here, ultimately, I think with this list and all of our lists really is we want to provide something that's useful. And kind of the rhetorical exercise that we use is if someone is coming to the PC for the first time and they hadn't played most games or any PC games, or like another line we might use is if an alien was coming to the planet for the first time and you wanted to sit them down in front of a crazy rig with every access to every PC game, like what would you tell them to play first, right? Because that actually has some utility, people. It's us signaling to our readers and whoever's checking out this list that this is where you should start if you're getting into PC games. And a lot of people have been getting into PC games over the past 4 or 5 years, if you haven't noticed. So Witcher 3 is kind of our big answer to that question. And
that is the number one. You just jumped right into the top, man.
It wasn't very...
Spoiler alert.
I don't want to generalize, but I think we were really pleased with the response and our discussion around that game. It's a game that we've loved and enjoyed. I was talking with Tim about it this week, our global editor here in the office, and because he's playing it now for the first time, and he's responding really well to it. And I was asking him, like, Tim, just what is it for you about The Witcher 3 that makes it such a big, why are you responding so well to it? And where we kind of ended up was for one thing, RPGs, I think, you look at our lists historically and it's like Deus Ex is at the top, Mass Effect is at the top, Skyrim's at the top. There's something about that kind of big, like polished, story-driven experience that we really appreciate here at PC Gamer, but also I think it's quality and quantity. That's such a hard thing to achieve for any game, but in particular, games that have an open world element that we're always especially delighted when someone is able to pull off. And say it's like part of the huge discussion around No Man's Sky. Their lack of interesting diversity across that experience in most people's minds. But that's just something that we feel like we have a big responsibility to celebrate and that we love. But what else stood out to you in our list here, Tom?
It's a big old thing. I think, I was really glad that we got a couple smaller things on there towards the top of the list. I think Stardew Valley was in the top 90 to 100 kind of category of it. And I'm glad we hit things like that, I'm glad we hit certain smaller ones. Every year I put Fez on my list because I think Fez is just, one of those puzzle games where the controversy became the conversation, which is so unfortunate. Fez is genuinely in my probably top 5 games ever. I love puzzle platformers, and it was just, man, I could go back and I could play that game over and over and over again. I think that I'm just really happy to see games like that make it. And also I was happy to just see kind of a shakeup because, like you said, for the last couple of years, Half-Life 2 and Mass Effect 2 have been dancing back and forth as number one.
Right.
And not to speak ill of them, because Half-Life 2 is still number 3 and Mass Effect 2 is still number 4. But I was really, really happy to see The Witcher 3 premiere so high. And it's a game I personally have kind of bounced away from a little bit, but understand and totally think it deserves that spot in a big way.
Mm-hmm. I think what else stands out here? I think lower in the list in like the 80s or 70s or something, I put in Mech Commander, which I think it's actually the only BattleTech game in the list, which you can argue all day about. But Mech Commander, it's freeware. You should absolutely play it. There's a cool map utility, just a terrific real-time squad-based strategy game with mechs. Sprite art still holds up really, really well. Cool voice acting and stuff like that. And
Stephen, we were talking about it earlier. Rocket League also premiered on the list in the top 10, which is huge. It was a game that when it first came out, we had conversations about it on the show of just is this the perfect kind of sports PC game, basically? And I think those conversations could still be had. It's still just a great thing, like we were mentioning earlier.
Mm-hmm. It's something that every type of gamer can play and enjoy, whether you're competitive or not competitive. It's immediately accessible. We were talking about earlier in the show, but for me, the number one thing that Rocket League does is it reproduces the feeling of instant chemistry with an anonymous person that sports can only do, I think. If you're playing pickup basketball with somebody and like you just get kind of, it's the neighborhood guys or whatever, and you're on this guy's team, you've never met him before, you have to learn like how he passes, can he shoot a three, like how tall is he, like is he selfish with the ball, and like you have to do that in 5 minutes in Rocket League, you know, and when it happens and you gel with somebody like that and then they're gone, it's beautiful, you know. What Madden game is going to do that for you, you know?
Real quickly, I do want to shout out Twitch staffer Poutine Queen, which is actually Sophia, is in the chat.
Oh, hey.
Sophia used to work at Future, so hi.
Sophia, you have a great Twitch alias. That's fabulous.
That's a great one. We did have
Canada.
We did have a question from Panzerg, one of our subscribers, who asks, and we didn't explain yet, how long does it take to decide which games take which spot? Are friendships made and lost over this list?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So I guess we'll break it down real quick. We vote individually first, and we don't see each other's votes. So I'll submit a list of my top 15 games. Tom will submit his. Everybody on the team, we compile that together. There's a scoring system where you're number one and it has the most weight or whatever. We tally that up. Inevitably, that leads to some issues because, say, if Tom is the only person to vote for NHL 97, the last good hockey game on PC, as his number one, and then inevitably that means it's like number 36 or something because there's like 20 people on staff total, including freelancers, and it's like, well, only one person voted for it, but it's their favorite game. How does that stack up against everybody else's like seventh favorite game, and like 9 people voted for, I don't know, XCOM 2 or something? So then we kind of negotiate those back and forth based on, well, of course, we're kind of looking at our review scores, but also just, again, we always come back to that like central guiding question of what's fun now, and that can be a little hard in some circumstances, like apples and oranges. Is Dragon Age Inquisition more fun than I don't know, the recent Deus Ex game? Like, gosh, you could
have a long conversation about that.
Yeah, like, how can you weigh things with completely different systems and philosophies in terms of their offering, but when they're not within the same genre? But I think we do the best we can. We treat it really seriously, and ultimately it's a reflection of our team and our tastes. It's never going to be an objective list. That doesn't exist.
Objective favorites is an oxymoron.
Good luck finding that. So yeah, it's representative of the taste of our team, and we certainly have some blind spots. Very few of us play League of Legends right now, for example, so you won't see that high up on the list. But we have like a really passionate Dota 2 expert, so that's just how can we not have that list reflect us? But yeah, there's arguments, but I think it's one of the more delightful parts of the job. Who doesn't love arguing about games and being passionate about it and saying like, no, like WoW is one of the best MMOs of all time, and you can't dispute its dominance and its ideas, even if, but what about EverQuest? Like, it pioneered the genre, and love those discussions. It's great.
Yeah, like I love the way that you kind of have I thought it was so great that Dark Souls 1 like jumped up so high, because you're right, like it's just sort of this reflection of our current attitude and what we love. And I thought that was really interesting that, like, in a post Dark Souls 3 world, Dark Souls 1 was the Dark Souls that everyone was like, no, this is the Dark Souls you need to start with. Like, it's not, saying that Dark Souls 3 isn't fantastic and worth your time, but Dark Souls 1, I don't know. You just have those. I love that there's just those interesting sort of out of left field kind of like recommendations where Dark Souls 1 hits number 2
for sure
out of nowhere.
Yeah, whereas like Mass Effect 2 is the one that we put forward as I guess we're sort of saying they're like as a starting point for the series. I don't know. I think we're implicitly saying like the whole franchise is great, but start here. Whereas I wouldn't tell most people to start with Mass Effect 1 these days. I think the Citadel is awful, but
boy, is it.
And the thing that I do want to pull up this image. Anybody I know, like Steolav in the chat mentioned that he actually had it in the mag. Anybody who's seen the magazine version of this list, the back page, which we can pull up here, is one of my favorite things.
It was the best.
For those of you listening on the podcast, I highly encourage you to go to PCGamer.com and find our top 100 because this we made the back page of the magazine this bingo game of the internet reaction bingo, and it's a bingo scorecard that I think you could genuinely find a bingo on probably, which is it's just full of the predicted reactions to people to this list of people.
And I don't know. I hope people don't feel like we're being too defensive or mean. It's really just we're having some fun with. We've done this for a number of years, and like we hear a certain number of things, and that's great. Like that's part of the discussion. Like if someone really hates or feels passionately about a game that is or isn't on the list, like great, let us know, and that like we're super glad to hear that and absorb it, and that's kind of why we're doing this, to have interesting discussion about games, as long as it's civil and not too abusive. But yeah. Some of these are funny.
Some of these I absolutely read too. Gone Home isn't even a game. Definitely saw that one. Mm-hmm. I actually saw that one, if I may name names a little bit, on the Warframe subreddit.
What?
Somebody.
Oh yeah, because Warframe is like 99 or something.
Yeah, Warframe's 99.
Yeah.
I believe Steven, that was on your list as well.
That was me. I put Warframe on the list.
Yeah, and somebody posted to the Warframe subreddit, and the first thing they said was, "Gone Home isn't even a game. Garbage list." And
I, the arbiter of games, have decided what is and is not a game, and I have arrived at this internet forum to tell you, this particular game is not a game for these following reasons. However, this other game, which bears some similarities, does qualify as a game.
Yeah.
I have drawn a line in the sand between what is and is not a game.
Very wavy line.
There's at least 4 being bribed bys. They're obviously being bribed by Valve, BioWare, CD Projekt, and then
just everybody.
Like this one, they're obviously being bribed by that Stardew Valley guy. The one-man indie team is bribing us to put him on like 90-something.
I love the Final Fantasy IX one. I feel like that one was so specifically targeted at Wes.
Yeah, Wes. Some of our UK guys actually love that series as well. But
I can't believe Democracy produced a result I don't like is a good one too.
Good times.
And of course, Dragon Age 2 should be higher. I think everyone has seen that comment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we continue to live down our high score for Dragon Age 2. If you're not a regular PC Gamer reader, it's a fun thing that keeps cropping up. We continue to laugh about it and enjoy the discussion around that game.
It's one of those fun laughs where you're like weeping inside, but outwardly.
I mean, some people. I mean, not without digging into it too much, and definitely not throwing anybody under the bus at all, because we stand by all our reviews, and obviously they get read before we publish them. But ultimately, individual people are doing the reviewing, and it's representative of the publication and our style and our ideas and whatnot. But they're the opinions of individuals, and multiple people in a group who play games don't always have the same ideas and decisions, so it happens.
While we were showing that list, Scarfington and Chris86 both resubscribed for 5 months, so thank you guys.
Wow.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, plus real quick, let's just go into this a little bit. Yes, the Dragon Age 2 score, I think we would maybe score it differently in retrospect, maybe, if that was a thing. But it's not on the list as like a gag. Like, I think at the same time, it's that type of thing where like the joke of this game was scored way too high got morphed into just everyone assuming it was a terrible game, and it's like there's a middle ground there, right? It's not that like, this game was a 94 or this game was a 70 or a 60 and 50 and everyone is like thinks it's terrible. Like there's some middle ground in there that we can all reach and we can all be happy about people having different tastes.
I vehemently argue that Dragon Age 2 got better with age. There, I said it.
I mean,
I've never even played it, so I think I can just blindly take the normal internet stance of you're all wrong and stupid for scoring it that way, because I think like most people who say that, I have not played the game, and I don't know.
Our reviews editor at the time gave Duke Nukem an 80 as well, the most recent Duke Nukem game.
Speaking of not throwing people under the bus.
Yeah, but it happens. We don't always get it right, but we try really hard and we take this stuff seriously.
Well, I encourage you all. Yes, it is a process, and we are passionate about games because because there's a lot of passionate
Don't
games.
say it the Canadian way. It's process. Come on.
Process? Did I say process?
You did.
You said process.
Oh, man.
Ha! I converted another one.
Annexing our words already.
Sorry.
Ugh. Let's move on to Q&A.
Yeah. Well, no, not Q&A yet.
Yeah?
There's a topic in between. Also,
Okay.
I did want to say that if anybody
there
wants to
is.
read this whole list, you can go to pcgamer.com /best-pc-games-1.
Just look for just
Or
Google.
just type in PC Gamer Top 100.
Just Google best PC
And
games.
that'll be
It's
way
probably
easier.
in there.
Dash
but
one.
-1 is the important part there.
Hashtag.
Hashtag Top 100 on Twitter, and I'll shut up now.
It's fine.
Let's move on to PAX West. I do want to look forward towards PAX West. James and I will be there. We're leaving, along with Will Chesney Scarfington, who's behind the camera right now. We're all going to be moving on to PAX on tomorrow, and we'll be going there from Friday to Monday is the event. It's going to be this huge thing. It's my third PAX, my first PAX West, PAX Prime. Whatever
Oh,
that was.
wow.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm really pumped to go there. And James and I have a massive schedule of things and games and stuff to see. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of the things I'm really excited to play, and then also see if there's anything you guys are like excited for me to play. Because as we were doing this, I was quickly realizing there are a lot of really, really good games this year at PAX. Like, more so than PAX East and South. And I know that PAX West is like kind of the biggest, it's the showboat of them all, but like there are some really, really good things to see at this PAX. And I'm excited, man.
Talk us through it, yeah.
I'm going to get to play on bright and early, Friday morning. I'll be able to play, the very first game I'm playing is actually one of the ones I'm most excited about, which is Oxygen Not Included. Which is Clay's new game that they announced at the PC Gaming Show at E3, our little shindig.
Mm-hmm.
And Oxygen Not Included is, I guess it's like a very Don't Starve style art, like space colony management
Yeah,
game.
so we don't know if it's like Dwarf Fortress, but they're calling it a colony game. There's only that like 1 minute trailer that they revealed at our show, but yeah, promising. It's great to see them explore space as a genre, sci-fi, I guess.
Yeah, it's a big change. Even though it's a similar art style, it's a big change in theme from Don't Starve.
Yeah, so definitely keep an eye on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/PCGamer. We'll have a ton of videos, but gameplay of that in particular will be going up as soon as possible on Friday.
Yeah. You can definitely keep an eye out at PCGamer.com/PAX, PAX-West-2016 for all the coverage, or you can also keep an eye out at youtube.com/PCGamer because that's where a lot of our coverage is going to be is videos. Let's see, there's so much other stuff, man. Like, James is going to get to play Dawn of War 3, which is really, really exciting.
Hell yeah.
I will be playing, I'm going to be catching up with a bunch of card game people. I know that, like, the PC gaming market is, like, split on, like, millions of people play card games, but not a lot of people are, like, super into card games. But, like, I'll be talking to the creators of Duelist there. I'll be talking to the creators of this card game that I've been enjoying called Eternal. I'll be talking to the guys from Elder Scrolls Legends. So there's a lot of, like, really good card games. Hopefully going to be playing Gwent as well while I'm there.
Heck yeah. Nice.
Go Gwent.
You're going to play Battletech.
Yes.
Oh my God. I
You're
mean,
excited about that, aren't
you
you?
mentioned this morning in our meeting. I was like,
Your mind exploded.
I didn't realize it was playable. I mean, I know they showed it at Gen Con. They did a live stream and some other stuff there, showing gameplay for the first time. Again, this is Battletech, the Kickstarter game by Harebrained Schemes, turn-based, created by some of the people who helped create like classic Battletech games, MechWarrior, Jordan Weissman, of course, the actual founder and father of Battletech, and FOSSA and Shadowrun and all that stuff. You're going to get a chance to talk to him. I was super encouraged by this gameplay, but I had a ton of questions coming out of it, so I'm really glad we're going to get a chance to follow up so quickly. But this game is on my radar as much as like an XCOM 3 would be, because it is a classic PC gaming franchise getting what it deserves, basically, which is a proper polished 3D treatment. You're bringing up the gameplay here. Like, what really struck me out of this was the terrain detail, like the nuanced terrain. This isn't just sort of a game board, like a digital board game or something.
And for the record, the video we're watching is super pre-alpha.
They caveated the hell out of this.
Yeah.
But, I mean, look at all the ridges and details and stuff like that. And using that for jump jetting and flanking, and I don't know. So far, so good, basically. So really looking forward to hearing more about that, Tom.
Yeah, I'm really excited to play BattleTech. I got to speak to Jordan Weissman at the PC Gaming Show also because they were there in the post show, and I'm excited to play this. I'm excited to talk to him again about it. When I talked to him last, I wasn't 100% sure what type of form the game was going to take. I actually thought it was going to be much more top down, and this is not really top down. Like it's much more of a side angle. You can zoom out and see like this big landscape more. It's a good looking game. It's still definitely got like pre-alpha assets in a lot of its art, but like of course it does, right? Like the game's not done, and I'm just excited to try it out. This is definitely one of the ones that kind of higher up on my list of things I'm excited for.
Excited for you. I talked with them at PAX Prime when it was called Prime last year, and yeah, that was when they had nothing to show for it. And I left that meeting actually pretty skeptical because I just thought like, oh, that's great. You want to kickstart a BattleTech game. Who doesn't want to kickstart something from beloved PC origins? But as soon as I saw this video, like I was on board. Way more optimistic about it. So I'm excited to see what you have to say about it once you go hands on.
Some dumb stuff from Adult Swim I'm playing is I get to try the Rick and Morty VR game.
Oh,
right.
Virtual Rickality, which I'm kind of pumped about.
God, that's just such a great story that Justin Roiland has created a studio.
Yeah, that's separate to the Rick and Morty game.
Around VR, like I'm just so glad that a person like him is enthusiastic about VR. I would say it's what VR needs right now, almost more than anything. Like a creative, bizarre, like weird personality helping
Elon Musk.
Yeah. I mean, sure, helping to drive VR with his intergalactic fart jokes and stuff. So no, I love that show. So
yeah, so James has a couple crazy cool interviews that we're going to be posting at youtube.com/PCGamer. He's going to be talking to Justin Roiland about his new company, which is called Squanch Tendo. And then also he's going to be talking to Suda51, pretty sure, which is kind of awesome. Killer 7 and No More Heroes and every kind of like weird, cool, hyper-violent, stylized Japanese game you might have seen come out of pretty much Nintendo. Like, what other systems did those games launch for? I remember it was No More Heroes that I think was Nintendo exclusive.
They had a GameCube exclusive. Capcom did for a little while in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Which
is hilarious. I love that pairing, right? It's such a weird pairing, but it's cool.
It's what that little lunchbox needed.
He's also going to be talking to Ron Gilbert about Thimbleweed Park. I'm going to be playing, now I'm blanking on the name, Toe Jam and Earl. I'm going to be playing the new Toe Jam and Earl at one point, which is also by Adult Swim. Like, there's just a lot of really freaking cool games coming out of this show right now.
Nice.
I'm pumped. Is there anything you guys, like, have your eyes on that you're excited about that's new maybe? Or in the chat as well, if you guys know of anything that is going to be coming to PAX that you kind of want me to live vicariously for you, let me know. There's so much stuff. Like, we haven't even touched on, like, I think Gears might be there. The newest Gears of War. I think that, like, oh my God. I said Gwent already. That was one of the ones that's not actually on my list, but I'm definitely going to, like, try to find.
I don't think Tyranny is there. That's a game I'm really looking forward to coming out this year. I just think Obsidian, it's a perfect pairing for them. It's a perfect response to Pillars of Eternity, to not just do a Pillars of Eternity 2 or an expansion pack or something, but to really kind of flip that genre on its head while retaining the good stuff about that, the best stuff about that game, like the art direction, the perspective, and some of the engine tech, while improving on the combat system. A lot of confidence and interest in Tyranny. So, but I'm not sure if it's going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few games, but I'm not sure if they're going to be there. Like Absolver from Devolver Digital continues to look incredible.
Absolutely.
And then I think the other one, they might be there, would be Mountain Warblade 2, Bannerlords.
Yeah, Mountain Blade, yeah.
Mountain Warblade. What did I say? Mountain Blade 2.
Is that a combination?
I was thinking of Mountain Blade Warband.
Yeah.
because
big old
those
mix.
games, I mean, that also premiered on the top 100 list for the first time. Warband did, and those games are some of the best RPGs on the PC, in my opinion. So I have really high hopes for Bannerlord, and I can't wait to see more of it.
Definitely, yeah. They showed off some defensive siege gameplay over at Gamescom.
Yeah.
That looked pretty good. You know, throwing rocks down at people through murder holes and whatnot. I just like saying the phrase "murder holes" whenever I can. So.
A couple questions about if anybody's going to be playing the South Park game, The Fractured Butthole.
Right.
Which I have to say out loud because that is their joke against everyone who has to say the name of that game out loud, so I'm not going to take that from them.
Well, you know why they did it, right? I mean, to dodge censorship, I guess, or so they could actually use that title. I mean, they wanted to use the actual...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they actually wanted to use...
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, there was an interview about it, and he explained the thought process behind it, and it was pretty silly. It was just them sitting around trying to come up with ways they could work butthole into the title.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a friend who's working on that project, and someone I play D&D with, basically, and he says that the South Park guys are like really involved with the game, so that's encouraging to hear. It's not just sort of a distant project or something.
Right. I don't know if we'll be playing that specifically, but I know I'll be at Ubisoft's booth to play For Honor, and I think like one or two other things that might be part of that appointment as well. It's just like Ubisoft alone is they're showing Steep, which is their snowboarding game. They're showing For Honor. You know, like just in that booth, there's so many things I want to see, right? And these are things that I didn't get a chance to fully see at E3, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll get a hands on there. James is actually in the chat and said that he's going to be seeing Strafe, Shadow Warrior 2. Both of those are from Devolver. He'll be playing Hob and also Sonic Mania, which is the Sonic game that we were talking about. I can't remember when we were talking about it on the show, but we talked about how it's the one where some fans of Sonic who were basically making a Sonic fan game were then just hired by Sega to make an official Sonic game.
Right.
And people are talking about it like it could be the first good Sonic game in a while because it's right, but
since 1991.
Yeah.
Or 3, I guess.
So we'll see that. Hob is actually... Let me pull up some video of Hob if I can.
Yeah, this is... I mean, it's creators of Torchlight, obviously. It's Runic Games up in Seattle. And this was announced maybe 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they've been really quiet since. I know it's also coming to PS4 or something, but...
It's like a third-person adventure game. It gives you kind of like almost Zelda-y vibes in it, but it looks a little bit different than that. It's very, very stylized, very kind of vibrant colors, a like almost cel-shaded art style, but not quite. It's a really, really pretty-looking game, pretty-looking adventure game, and I think James is going to be playing this one, but I'm going to sneak in and also play it at some point because it's a game I've been looking forward to since they announced it. It's just everything about it just screams kind of my name. It's my type of game. It's my type of art style. Yeah.
Great.
It's so pretty.
Well, Tom, thanks for going up to Seattle and bringing us back every video game.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's what I'm going to do.
Appreciate that.
It's for you guys. It's for you viewers at home.
Taking one for the team.
And Evan, because he's my boss. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions about PAX, you can always check out our PAX West coverage at pcgamer.com or youtube.com/pcgamer, and keep an eye out over this weekend because from Friday through Monday and probably a few days after that, we're going to be posting tons and tons and tons of stuff. So it'll be really cool. And then let's jump along though, and let's take your questions from Twitch chat. So if you have any questions you can continue to ask about PAX or our top 100 list and how we go through that, or why we chose something where it is, or you can tell us why we're wrong, or questions about Legion or Eve or anything on your mind in PC gaming that has nothing to do with that. Tag us with @PCGamer in the Twitch chat. We'll get to your questions, and if you're a subscriber to the Twitch channel, we'll try to grab your questions first. And if you're watching at home you are watching at home, hopefully. But if you are watching on YouTube at youtube.com/PCGamer or on our iTunes page or on PCGamer.com/podcast or wherever you're listening or watching, you're always welcome to join us at twitch.tv/PCGamer at 1 p.m. on Wednesdays Pacific time every week. We're right here doing the show live just for you.
Somebody's probably going to ask about the Battlefield 1 beta. The servers were down, unfortunately, right before the show started. I was trying to get in there and get my hands on it, but we will be publishing some stuff on the site, our thoughts on that beta very soon.
It looks very Battlefield-y from GIFs I've seen. Very silly.
But also very Battlefront-y in the sense that I think it's very fast. So yeah.
Cool.
Pretty positive response that I've seen so far, though.
We'll have more on that as we actually get to play it, which is very soon, hopefully. Steelov asks, will you be covering Star Citizen again? Yes, definitely.
Actually, yeah, definitely.
We're working. I believe Chris Livingston is playing it right now.
Yeah.
Where I mean, it's quickly, in my eyes at least, quickly becoming a game that is actually a game and actually playable, and the things that they showed. Was it Gamescom? The planetary landings that Sam Roberts over in the UK got to try out.
Did you watch the video though?
I watched some of it, not all.
It was gorgeous, and you know we ran the headline, and some other folks did too. Like, you know, we said it blew No Man's Sky out of the water, and you know, maybe it's not a fair comparison because there are hundreds of people working on this game as opposed to the dozen or so working on No Man's Sky. Anyway, it looked really good, and what was funny about it though is, you know, they're demoing it live, and these things can happen, but they get down to the planet, and like, you know, there's this rapturous applause. Everyone's really excited. It's all like the hardcore backers of the game and whatnot. Like, they're finally here. It's like you know, after years, they've landed on a planet. It's like an actual moon landing or something for these folks, basically. And he turns around and is like, all right, let's get back in the ship. And the place that he landed, the ramp was such that he couldn't like step onto it. It was sort of like elevated slightly above the ground. He couldn't jump. And, you know, I'm not mocking them, or it was just like a funny hitch or something.
Yeah.
You know, like we've because it's so symbolic. Like, after like hundreds of millions of dollars and all this effort, and well, it's not hundreds of millions, excuse me, all this time and effort and energy, like, we've reached this big milestone, and we're stuck. We can't get back in this ship. Anyway, it looks really promising, though. I'm looking forward to hearing what Chris Livingston says about it.
Yeah, I'm excited for that game to actually start becoming something I want to put my hands on.
Yeah.
And that's not anything against Star Citizen specifically. It's like, I've said this before, I just kind of try to stay away from unfinished early access games and that sort of thing. Same here. I'm excited for it to be something that I want to try, and that they want me to feel is the experience I'm supposed to be having. Let's see. There's actually, from Kunifu, one of our subscribers, a unrelated space game question of, have you had a chance to go visit the suspected alien crash site in Elite Dangerous yet?
Oh, yeah. We wrote about that yesterday. No.
Yeah, I don't think we've had a chance to go and try it or see it ourselves, but it is interesting that this kind of ever-present side story within Elite updates of these aliens maybe being somewhere or maybe not existing, or who knows, is like starting to progress a little bit more, and maybe even getting a little bit more overt than space barnacles. Yeah, I'm glad that it's still part of their focus. I mean, obviously a smaller team than something like Star Citizen, a more focused project in some ways, but games that have that kind of scale and focus on exploration should leave those kind of breadcrumbs, absolutely. Yeah, I've said it before, Elite is one of those games that I keep, unfortunately, kind of bouncing off of, even though I really want to. Did you have a similar experience, Stephen?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wrote about it when I was talking about No Man's Sky, that I bounced off that game real hard, but I kind of want to go back to it. Bouncing off the old atmosphere.
There's part of me that thinks when the next level of VR headsets, when the Oculus Rift 2 comes out, right? Whenever that may be, I'm not saying I have insider info. I'm just saying, whenever that is, if I have a bigger office area, and I'll just buy a Warthog, the voice comms software for Elite, and never leave my house.
Yeah, totally. You got to go the whole deal. And I've played that game in VR with the proper flight sticks that are actually the ones modeled in the game, and it made me appreciate that game infinitely more, because it is just it's such a game that loans itself so well to being able to really sort of step into that world with VR and with voice commands and all that stuff. But yeah.
Kunifu actually had a follow-up question that's unrelated, but also a very good question, which is, have you discussed the events around the in case of emergency release Raptor over the past few days, and what might your thoughts be? Wes is actually working on a piece more in depth about this right now, and it's, for those of you who don't know, a developer released a game on Steam called In Case of Emergency Release Raptor, I think on early access, or had been on early access, and then 3 days after it launched out of early access, decided to take the game off of Steam and just make it free because of such poor sales. And basically they were like, if I keep working on this game, I'm going to run out of money and not have means to live. And it was just kind of a really, really bummer, sad story. And I imagine is a story that is happening more often than we hear about, probably, because there are just so many games coming out on Steam right now that, you know, it's hard to get noticed even for us when we're like, I'm looking, literally, I've said this before, I'm looking through every game that's been released on Steam every week now for this article that I do, and it's eye-opening how much stuff just sits there and how much of it is actually very appealing looking. I haven't seen this game specifically, so I can't say if it looked like a good game or not, but like, it's just amazing to find a game that I look at the trailer and I'm like, wow, this looks like a game that has production quality behind it and has like 2 reviews on Steam. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's true of many platforms. I mean, Steam had a gold rush period from, I don't know, you could say it's all the way from like 2009 into like 2012, 13 maybe, where simply the act of being on Steam guaranteed some level of interest, if not success. And a lot of people benefited wildly from that. I mean, you look at some of the earliest indie games on Steam, Killing Floor, I don't know, stuff like Frozen Synapse sticks out to me. And now, like, having an excellent, high-quality game is not a guarantee of anything on Steam. You know, you have to really know how to get the attention from the right people. You need to really tap into existing trends like survival in an interesting way and put an interesting twist on them that no one has thought of before. You need to have great art and marketing and timing and luck and, you know, just all the stuff that wasn't as necessary as it is now, and this is a reflection of that.
Also on Elite, Max Ursa, one of our other subscribers, says, anyone that wants to get to grips with Elite, check out the Galactic Academy Discord channel, and that I can be his wingman anytime, so I appreciate that. I might actually take you up on that at some point.
Thanks, buddy.
That's awesome.
Only if we can have like a super cool call sign like Hollywood or something from Wing Commander, Maniac.
Hollywood.
Vagabond.
See, this is where my mind's at, is I just rewatched Creed the other day, which is everyone needs to go see if you are able to watch R-rated movies, because, oh man,
not quite there yet myself.
His nickname is Hollywood in that movie, and you were like, Hollywood, and I was like, oh, you mean Creed? Like Creed? Oh, no.
There's just, I have
about Wing Commander.
I have a lot of affection for like the certain class of call signs in games that evolved out of Top Gun specifically. Wing Commander is absolutely an example of that, but also stuff like Mech Commander, which I mentioned earlier. You have just call signs like Mantis and Hitman, and there's a guy called Rooster as well, which is he's like the hillbilly mech pilot.
Let's see, a couple more questions coming in. Subscriber, I'm going to say this so bad. Meprim8, I hope. What are your thoughts on Motorsport Motorsport Manager? I don't think any of us play that series or Motorsport Manager. That's probably a better question for our UK office. Yeah. I think those guys are more into those games like that, the manager games, Football Manager, that sort of stuff. We dumb Americans and Canadians, you know.
I think it's specifically motorbikes, right? It's not cars. Yeah, it's definitely a niche game, but we're super happy those experiences exist. I mean, it's crazy how popular Football Manager is, to us at least, over in Europe and the rest of the UK.
And it's worth calling out, too, that if you are a fan of the PC Gamer podcast and want more of it, the UK guys do have a UK podcast as well that you can find on the site. So there's more PC Gamer love to go around.
That's right.
All right, let's grab a couple more. Workster asks, will due process be shown any? I think you must mean at PAX. I'm not sure if Due Process will be at PAX. If it will be, I want to play it because that's correct me if I'm wrong, that's the breach and clear kind of very blocky breach and clear game, right?
Yeah, but procedural.
Yes, yeah.
Last I heard, those guys were changing the art of the game, which is super placeholdery before. It was at PAX 2 years ago. So, yeah, high hopes for that game. I thought even with the release of something like Rainbow Six Siege, which represents kind of the pinnacle of some of those ideas, there was room for this kind of smaller scale, voxely, procedural, more lighthearted take on that. So I really hope that project's continuing along well. But yeah, we haven't heard anything about it since we did some videos about it, I think, about a year and a half or 2 years ago on our channel.
Yeah, if Due Process is at PAX, I will hunt it out and I will find it and I will film it for you guys if I can, because I'm interested in that one as well. All right. Ashnod, actually kind of going back to what I was saying at the beginning of the show, just started playing RimWorld thanks to the Let's Play series. If that happened to any of you guys. Not specifically because of a Let's Play series, but I did just get RimWorld, and once PAX is passed and I can actually play the game and not be doing a million other things and filming lots of videos, I'm excited to jump into RimWorld. I thought it was really fortuitous because I got RimWorld and then like the day after or the day that they added the tutorial to the game.
It was added very recently.
Which is fantastic timing in terms of my brain like wanting to play RimWorld and then them being like, oh, let me help you with that. And I was like, okay, sure.
It's one of the key reasons I put the game down, because when I jumped in, it didn't have a tutorial. And I don't know. I hate to sound like a child because I love and I champion these kinds of games, Dwarf Fortress being one of the biggest examples of them on PC. Convoluted, super heavy systems driven games. I think it's one of the greatest things on the platform, but God, their interface is so bad. Steven, are you with me on this? I know you
that interface is terrible. Gives me God, shivers just talking about it.
Just kind of everything is given equal value, regardless of its importance and how often you're using it. And again, just the total absence of a tutorial was mind-boggling to me. I know they're not finished with a game yet per se, but
for sure,
man.
I didn't actually have a problem without the lack of a tutorial because, I had wrote about it and I just basically jumped into that game blind. I think I watched like a 5-minute video just showing me the very basics.
Jeez, I know you're a smart guy.
I'm a genius, but certainly I think that game, if you've always been intrigued by like a Dwarf Fortress, RimWorld is absolutely where you need to go, because even just the fact that you can look at the screen and understand what's happening on it without having to learn like what the different sort of axes characters mean is a huge benefit. But yeah, it certainly didn't turn me off. I think, of course, the tutorial is a good thing. Like, why wouldn't you want the tutorial for a game like that? But I think it's certainly a very approachable kind of heavy, obtuse sim in some ways.
You should also check out Clockwork Empires, another game in that genre, but set in like Victorian era with some cool Cthulhu and steampunk elements.
Forgot about that.
Oh man, I had a question that I thought was a really good one. Here it is. Okay. The question was, I remember now, JBJ Blaze, our longest subscriber, I believe, at this point.
The Ancient One.
The Ancient One. The all legendary, eaten by a bear.
He's probably like 23 years old.
In that game.
Love you, JBJ.
Asked a question and had to run, so I wanted to pull it back because he asked it at the beginning of the show. Have you guys tried PS Now yet? Either way, what do you guys think of it? Thus far, I'm impressed with the performance of it, despite, of course, input lag, but would still prefer to be able to just download The Last of Us to my hard drive and play it that way. We talked about PS Now, which is the PlayStation streaming service, last week on the show, but it was all theory then, and now it's just available. So you can try the 7-day free trial of PS Now, and then I think it's like $15 a month?
I think it's actually 20, at least in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, did our article publish? We're right in the middle of publishing our impressions on PS Now after using it today and last night, and it doesn't look like it has yet. Okay,
not yet.
So yeah, I mean, so far so good. I was sort of peeking over the shoulder of James. You can use an Xbox controller. You can't use a mouse and keyboard, I believe. So like for a shooter, which is a little bit disappointing, you can't. If you're playing Resistance 3, which is one of the games available, you can't just jump on with your mouse and keyboard. But in terms of the performance, which of course is contingent on how good your internet connection is, you want to pay attention to those minimum requirements if you're considering this. It looked fine. We were playing Street Fighter, which is definitely a latency-sensitive game, and it was doing fine. Not perfect, but like more than playable in our opinion. Of course, this service becomes more valuable if you've played none of the PS3 exclusives, stuff like Uncharted and Ratchet and Clank, which are really fun games. But yeah, a lot of multi-platform games in there like BioShock. You probably wouldn't want to just stream a version of BioShock through PS Now when you can get it on sale and play it, at full 1080 with no. You can play it locally. Like, why would you want to do that? But
or the remaster version soon, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, we continue to tinker with this service, and to be clear, we think this is a great thing. Why wouldn't you want access to another platform's library, or a portion of it, I should say?
Absolutely.
On PC, this is not a bad thing. This is not like, console games on PC, who would do that? Like, we're winning here, guys. Like, this is a huge score for us as PC gamers. It's absolutely not something to complain about, and we haven't seen many people complaining about it. But the more the merrier. It's great.
Yeah, I think our impressions of it so far are actually pretty similar to JBJ's, which is that I would rather just download the game to a hard drive, but it works surprisingly well for a streaming service so far, which is exciting because it didn't really, after it was announced, it wasn't really launched with much fanfare. Like, we didn't get a release date on it, I don't think. It was just like, it was in the UK a couple days ago, and now, hey, you can use it now. And it's like, The Last of Us and Shadow of the Colossus are now playable on PC, by the way.
Yeah.
Just by the way, like, you could just go play Shadow of the Colossus on your PC right this very moment for $0 because that game is only 8 hours long, and you can definitely beat it in a 7-day free trial if you wanted.
And you should. And again, like, I don't know, because we're so exposed to hardware here, I have to remind myself and remind other folks on the team sometimes, like, there are millions of PC gamers playing on, like, a GTX 560 or a 670 or whatever. Like, you look at that Steam hardware survey that's published every month, and very few people are running a 1080 overall. A lot of people on integrated graphics, partly because there's a lot of laptops with Steam installed and stuff like that. But for the right person, I think there are a lot of these people with a little bit older hardware who didn't own a PS3. This is an amazing value potentially. You put in, say, 2 months into this, and you play 8 or 9 or 12 games all the way through. Like, that's a crazy value potentially. So definitely give it a look if you're in that category. There's no shame in playing PS3 games on your computer.
Why can't we all just get along, Evan?
Because we have to violently defend our consumerism and our choices and protect corporations at all costs. Because
I wouldn't say there's no shame either. That's like the beauty of it, is that we can do this now. Like, that's what makes the PC special, is you can play other games on a PC. It's such it's a system that's so fluid.
Well, just imagine going back in time a little bit to, say, 2005, which I think was kind of the peak. 2005, 2006, the peak moment of the PC is dying. That kind of rhetoric was just so rich and abundant and just everywhere. And telling them, in 2016, Sony's going to publish 400 games. Is it 400?
Over 400.
Over 400 games on PC, and you can get them all for $20. Like, that person,
mic dropped.
That person would flat not believe you. That person would be like, "Oh, please!" Like, how would that even happen? Sony doesn't publish, like, they have the Vio or whatever. They make those laptops, and they don't do it anymore, I think. But like, if you subscribe to the notion of console wars, which is a stupid, weird idea, to, like, just ignore that bullshit. But if you do, like, we won. Sorry, guys, we're getting all the games. I mean, you look at
ignore it. It doesn't matter, but we won.
I mean, I'm sort of having my cake here and eating it too. But you look at what Microsoft is doing with exclusivity now. Like, sure, they've screwed up in a lot of ways over the past few years, but they're seemingly finally coming around.
You just did that thing that, like, every little kid does to their younger sibling.
It's true, I did.
Right? It's like, I'm not going to fight with you, but if I do, I win.
Yeah, getting the last word, but then also shutting down the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm an immature 4-year-old, but
we won, so it doesn't matter.
And yeah, sure, it's not like we're not getting all the PS4 games, and yeah, it's streamed and it's not perfect, blah blah blah. But
it's pretty exciting.
We have the biggest library. We have access to stuff that was formerly exclusive to the PlayStation 3. That was first party exclusive. That's insane.
Yeah, that's
like, you go back and tell that to somebody in 2005, 6, 7, they would just they would not believe you.
Yeah.
No one would. It's amazing. So,
well, I mean, yeah, you can also just stream PS4 games to your PC now too. Anyway,
right.
Which I've done a lot of. So I mean, that's not really the same thing, but you still have to own the PS4. But I mean, I've sat down at my computer and played PlayStation 4 games for hours on my second monitor, and it's great.
Yeah, you're just talking about greater integration and parity between the technology of these games. You know, it was a big deal when PS4 were announced, and the fact that it was on x86 architecture was not its own kind of weird architecture and technology, and that's great for people who port games and make multi-platform games that appear on PC. So
the singularity is coming.
It is.
As Kunivu says, which I think is a nice note to close the show out on, is this could be the first step of quite an interesting cross-platform journey.
Oh, that's so hopeful.
Yeah, it is. It is hopeful.
It's kind of beautiful.
But we won, so whatever.
That's all that matters.
But it's our journey. We started it.
We have a good article that James actually posted in the chat that you can find at pcgamer.com that's kind of the best games that you really, if you're going to try the free trial or even the subscription of PS Now, like these are the games you should go try first, basically, if you've never had a PlayStation or anything like that. So go check that out. But that is all the time we have for you today. That hopeful rhetoric at the end there pushed us far over time, but you know what? We all feel better about it afterwards. I want to thank you, Steven, for joining us.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
We'll probably have you back on once we've released you from the World of Warcraft mines.
That's not happening. I have what's that syndrome? Stockholm is it? No, I can't remember it. Where you're obsessed with your captors.
Yeah, that's
is it Stockholm syndrome? Okay, yeah. I got Stockholm syndrome. So World of Warcraft is great, never leaving. You can now refer to me as Thanarian, my demon hunter night elf. So changing my name legally and my Twitter handle. It's gonna be a process, but bear with me.
You realize that'll be your name tag on the overlay for the show next time you're on.
Please, that's great. Yeah, I'd love it.
Does the name have an apostrophe in it?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't. I am a good World of Warcraft player. I did not make a demon hunter, and I didn't name it some version of Illidan. That is the worst. Don't do that, guys. Please. Please. I implore you, don't name your demon hunter Illidanni.
Is that the World of Warcraft equivalent of playing Counter-Strike with the name Neo in 2006 or something?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Great.
It's bad. Don't do it.
Gotcha.
This sounds like, yeah, you should get help, man. This sounds like a lot of problems.
Yeah, come help me play WoW better, Tom. I need help beating this dungeon, and you can do that if you play with me. And James.
You got James. You don't need me.
We need a third. If we can get a healer, then we got a little group going.
This is the longest goodbye I've ever had on this show, Steven. I've got to tell you.
I'm really dragging it out because I don't want it to end. It's so fun.
That's so sweet.
Aww.
Evan, thank you also for joining us today.
Yeah.
See, that was how you do it. Now it's over.
Yeah, but Evan's like a robot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
No offense.
I'll just say we won, baby. Victory. We won. We did it.
And thank you, everyone, watching this ridiculously weird show that we just had for you today. You're always welcome to join us once again next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific time, right here at twitch.tv/PCGamer. You can always leave us comments at PCGamer.com/podcast and then click on the top post of the week. And in general, thank you very, very much for listening, and we'll see you next week.